hate himself, you know. And he said, oh man, them Africans don't want you. And then he used to go to Atlantic City, you know. He was one of them, you know, Jalali guys. So he liked gambling. But he saw the Muslims in there. And he thought we was praying to them Arabs. You gonna pray to them Arabs? They're down there with me, you know. But he didn't understand that, you know, we're not, you know. But it encouraged me to go investigate, to search out the family history. And lo and behold, I discovered two Bilals, not one Bilal, two Bilals as plantation managers in America, as leaders of Muslim communities in America in 1812. And I never heard that name Bilal till Mama came up. They call us Bilalians. You know, and today we got some Bilalians. We got Bilalian judge. I said another brother told me that he had his birth certificate is Bilalian. You know, I remember my son asked me, he said, Daddy, what am I? You know, maybe about 5 years ago. I said, African American. He said, no, I'm not. He said, I'm a Bilalian. Go for it, son. Go for it. I forgot. You know, I forgot. But these two Bilals, you know, they were plantation managers. And then you start, you know, they call the Gullah people, you know, and some of, you know, the South Carolina Gullah people call us Georgia ones sand geechies. You know, that's a little slang for them, you know, but they didn't see us as that. But then you go and investigate the people out of South Carolina, you know, they came and was enslaved early on. Early 1700s, late 1600s, early 1700s. And you can see a lot of the Pentecostal people, the emotional people, and the ties to religion come from that area. And they trained us that way. They took a law from us and gave us a European Jesus Christ. And so they can't separate that. You know, you hear them talk, oh God, oh God, oh God, but then they throw that Jesus in at the end. You know, they cannot separate that. And they also, what they do, they teach them based upon emotions. You know, it's singing, it's entertaining, is how they teach them and to address them. But that Georgia, Gullah Geechee guy, saying Gullah Geechee guy, he had Bilal. You know, and I'll tell you, in between these two Bilals, we found on a plantation called Pierce Butler Plantation. And if y'all ever seen a movie, and this is a part of American fabric. There's a TV show called a TV movie called The Fanny Kimball Story. The Fanny Kimball Story is talking about a slaver called Pierce Butler, who went broke. He had over 450 people that came directly from Africa that he had to sell. And a few of them he kept. And one of the ones that he kept was a guy named Sambo Swift. And the first tombstone I found between them two Bilals was with the Taid on it. So I quickly will connect Bilal ibn Rabah and being tortured and putting up the one finger that we do today. One God, Taid. You know, and we found these tombstones from Jacksonville, Florida, all the way up to Maine, in the town called Muhammad, Illinois, and Mecca, Indiana. You know, and I say this is that being a pioneer or doing something that's not been done before, don't look for a roadmap. Look for a law to guide you and to inspire you. There is no roadmap. He's going to direct you. The roadmap is going to come after you. You are bringing forth that roadmap. You know, and my Lord Muhammad saying, man, fear not the criticism of the criticizer. Fear not. Know that, fear not. You know, I'm telling, man, please. Take your experience that Allah allowed you. Allah said, you send the signs in all things, right? Look for the sign within your own personal life. Look for love and forgiveness as well. Because that will open up your heart to be able to understand and to move forward and to grow. It's vital, you know, if it's in your own personal home, if it's in your personal life experience, look for Allah's hand in it. Out of darkness comes light. So look in those dark things and find the best of it. And so you could grow and evolve. You know, it once again said education comes from the world Allah made. Allah forms knowledge for the needs of the soul, the spirit, and the mind. Allah forms knowledge for the needs of the soul, the spirit, and the mind. Education is at the forefront of all of our efforts. Education is always at the forefront. Education leads societies, lifts them up, beautifies them, sustains them, and opens possibilities that would otherwise remain concluded. Those were my notes that I had. Alhamdulillah, I was able to complete. I put them in big print, you know, not 12, not 14. I made sure 16 so I could read them. I planned to, since I had time. No, but I got the clock, you know, I put me in this cage, all right? All right, alhamdulillah. You know, that I moved to Washington, D.C. maybe in the 1990s. Matter of fact, in the 1990s. The brothers talked about, the sister said, they spoke about the ecosystem. And there's ecosystem within the ecosystem. Okay, that, you can look at your personal lives, you know, there's connections. I wound up moving back to Connecticut for a hot minute. It didn't fit me no more. So a brother named Gene Bilal met me in Richmond, Virginia, when Richmond, Virginia was going through the transition from Imam Ba'id to Brother Benjamin Kareem. And I met him there, and he remembered me having a bookstore. So he had got a job with the Iranians, IEC Educational Center in Potomac, Maryland. And so he brought me in to be the accountant for him. You know, look, I've been blessed. I had been my highest job in the world. I worked for ACLU in the legislative office on Capitol Hill, and next to the Supreme Court, where that, what was that green bridge I used to see walk by me, and something. Lord, I had to control myself, you know. A couple other Congress people, you know. That was for me, the highest job, as well as it was a black African-American woman that was the manager of that department. And a couple of times my girls would come visit me, and I would bring them to the job so they could see a black woman in a position of authority. You know, I learned that I had to give them quality of time, not because I didn't have to give them the quantity. You know, I was very short with them, so I had to look for giving them the quality of time. You know, alhamdulillah, they're all sitting behind a desk, serving humanity. You know, so I'm thankful for that. You know, for that lessons. So I used to walk. Then the next thing happened to me. You know, I'm in D.C. with the archives. I cannot leave D.C. and not go to the archives to investigate. Oh my God, I used to spend days and nights at the archives, man. That was that manual stuff. Oh my God. But alhamdulillah, the computer came. Or I learned a little bit more about the computer, you know. Then Ancestry.com. You know, oh man, it's easy. It's easy. I mean, I'm telling you, man, I've been blessed. The trace Elijah Muhammad's genealogical to his grandmother, I remember one time talking to one of Elijah's granddaughter, Halima. And she fussed with me, oh my God, she fussed with me because I left out one of the children, Samuel. But he wasn't listed. He was not listed. So she made me go back and go a little bit deeper dive. So going a little bit deeper dive, Elijah Muhammad's grandparents lived next door to him. And that's where Samuel was. He was not Marie's child. He was Waleed's child before Marie came. So that's why he lived there. You know, but alhamdulillah, you know, I accepted that criticism and went deeper dive. You know, so when I say deeper dive, you know, in that first thing, Ancestry, they got a summary. Then you can go in behind that summary and look at the census records and the census tract, who was a neighbor, who lived next door, and so forth. So I had to do that dive and to get there. And looking at that, you know, you can see, we even found out Master Wali Muhammad in Detroit, he named after W.D. Muhammad's uncle, Muhammad Muhammad's brother. You can see that history, you know, and connection, you know. Who's one of his children married. We haven't found a picture yet of him, but now we know the family, been able to identify the family. So I just started doing the research and research, you know, and doing your history. You got Ancestry.com. You got the Freedom Bureau records, you know, like in the Georgia, Brunswick, Georgia records. I found my ancestor that was born in Africa, but she married I just say white indentured servant, but he might have been a mulatto. Now I think about it, you know, I might have thrown a little color. But his name was Higginbottom. And then they come up out of Florida, you know, and they was not part of the plantation. They didn't own no plantation. No Higginbottom owned no plantation, so they was, you know, indentured servants as well. And then it lists all of them down there. In there, my father had, and if their parents owned any land, you know, they talk about getting 40 acres in the mule, you know, some of us got that 40 acres, you know. And then I wasn't expecting to talk about that, but the Imam, if I can recall right, he talked about that 40 acres. Because he talked about Moses and them traveling for 40 years, that 40 acres means something as well. I didn't make that in my note, but I do know that it stated that 40 acres represents something as well. That mule represents our arrogance and our, you know, stubbornness, you know. So it goes in, so once I looked at what the plantation said, it said it was part of the Bonneville plantation out of Savannah, Georgia. So now I'm connected to Savannah, Georgia. So now I go look up the name we call, and another thing, you see so many ways our names can be spelled. On my father's side, the name was Bailor, B-A-I-L-O-R. And the first time and then you'll see B-A-I-L-E-R. Then I seen it one time, Balaam, B-A-L-A-A-M. I've seen so many different aspects of that name, Balaam. To the point that most recently in the news, I think one of the last guys they arrested for doing some harm or something. He might have came out of Senegal or Nigeria, I forgot where, one of the African countries. And his middle name was Balaam. And I've never seen that before, Bella like that, you know. So there's that connection. But within there, in those senses, my great-great-grandfather in the census record just looked like an old Bella. It didn't really have his name, it just had old Bella. That's what it looked like to me. But once I looked in the Freedom Bureau records, there was children that lived there that said they got two brothers living in Brunswick, Georgia. One named Ned and one named George. So now I know my great-great-great-grandfather's name was George. You know, because they couldn't spell that George or whatever the writer was. It looked like an O, but now I know it's George Bell. And then they talk about the earliest one before that was William and Hager. And one of the things that we do as a tradition, we pass down those names. Like my great-grandfather, you know, grandmother, grandfather. My great-grandfather, his name was William. He was named after his grandfather. You know, that tradition goes down. Some of it's subconscious, some of it's conscious. You know, I know I named my daughter. I gave her an Islamic name, but I gave her my mother's middle name, which is Virginia. And Virginia means innocent. You know, and to that connection. So that they had that sense. I was named after one of my uncles. I would have kept that name if I had a little bit more knowledge at the time. But my middle name I wanted to get rid of. So that had to go, you know. That just will not work for me. Now, I got 2 minutes, so I'm going to break it down. You know, we wound up opening up a museum. Because I'm in D.C., I got all these museums, Chinese museum, Thai museum, everybody got a museum but us. What? What? You know, and so I saw Muhammad speak. I thank for it, there I am. Come on, man, I can do this, I can achieve this. You know, so when we started out, you know, as a traveling museum, it might have been about 11 years before we opened up the door. Allah bless us, opened the door into a physical space. And we lasted that for 10 years, so not that we fell, they knocked the building down. To redo the building, you know, and now we're looking for another space that we could have parking. We could provide culture space. We're working on 2 projects. The second project, which looks like it's going to be our first project to accomplish, is that we're looking to do a community space. I heard the brother and sister talking about some of the early towns that were developed by African Americans after the slavery days. Well, the street I lived on in Washington, D.C., when I first moved, they had no sidewalks. Blew my mind, but had no sidewalks. But that was a community that the first African Americans were able to buy property in Washington, D.C. You know, but the current day political establishment don't see that. You know, we've got maybe 11 townhouses that they developed. Let me rephrase that. 11 sets of townhouses. 10 maybe to 12 each set. You know, so we've been blessed to buy some land that's next door to us. And we're working with a contractor now to design to add to the house so that we can put our archives in. We can have a library in there, a community space. I traveled in one of these community places in Pittsburgh, you know, try to be like that bee. You know, get a little honey wherever you travel and bring it back to develop. So I was in one place, they had a pool table. I didn't know Muslims play pool. You know, not them, anyway. I didn't know they played pool, and they had air hockey. So I wanted to get a space that we could come together and socialize, play pool, you know, play air hockey, but yet get educated. You know, on that human education, that spiritual education. You know, it's one of the first institutions that we're going to go. And then we just got to have patience and time. Before Allah bless us to get a physical space to do the exhibit, exhibition. Allah has blessed us that we paid for the first phase of the design of the exhibit, which is interactive. When you go in there, you're going to hear the legend stories about the sister from California, how California got this name, about Mansa Musa's story. The first European that came here and established Brooklyn as a Muslim, established Brooklyn, New York. Queen Khalifa and Estebanica, the Muslim that discovered Arizona and New Mexico. We're going to have an orientation theater. The videos and everything has been designed and done. We paid for the second phase of the exhibit to begin with the process of that design, so that when we do get that space, we'll be ready to move in. So I say this, you know, Elijah Muhammad used to say, up you mighty nations, you can accomplish what you will. I think, therefore I am. Come to prayer, come to success. Thank you.